Hi everybody, welcome back to That's WAC, where we talk about the Washington Administrative Code for child care professionals. Today we're going over WAC 110-300-0140, which is room arrangement, I can't talk today. The new year has taken all of my voice. But it's WAC 110-300-0140. 0140, okay? And it's room arrangement, child-related displays, privacy, space, and belongings. So, early learning materials and equipment must be visible, accessible to children in care, and must be arranged to promote and encourage independent access by children. This one's really hard for teachers, especially in the art area. There are some things in the art area that should be out all the time. One, you should have an art area. But there are some things that should be out all the time that children can access by themselves. The exception to this would be toddlers. Toddlers, they should still have all access to all those things, but they should be in a way where it's a little bit more difficult for them to get into, if that makes sense. So still have coloring crayons or markers and paper out, but you might put it in one of those keeper boxes where it's harder for younger children to open. Now if they're older children in preschool and up, you should put it in like a tin can, or some type of thing where they can just grab it and put it in there. So it's supposed to be independent. An early learning provider must display age and developmentally appropriate early learning materials, and materials must be located at enrolled child's eye level and related to current activities or curriculum. So it's got to be on display and at eye level, not on top of the cubbies or the counter. An early learning provider must offer or allow a child to create a place for privacy. So this space must allow the provider to supervise children and include an area accessible to children who seek or need time alone or in small groups. So you should have within your classroom an area where a child can go to be alone. You should also have areas where just 2 people can go, or 3 or more people can go. But if a child wants some alone time and the only place you have is the library and there's 2 other children in the library, they're not really getting that alone time because there's children in their space. Let's see. An early learning provider must have extra clothing available for children who wet, soil, or have a need to change clothes. So a lot of places say it's the parent's job to provide clothing, which it should be. But in case a parent forgets or they run out, there should also be extra on hand that you can put a child in. They shouldn't be left in wet clothes just because they don't have any clothes. An early learning provider must supply individual storage space for each child's belongings while in attendance. At a minimum, the space must be accessible to the child, which I don't see that a lot. It's usually inaccessible to a child. And large enough and spaced sufficiently apart from other storage spaces to store the child's personal artifacts and clothing, and promote or encourage children to organize their possessions. Child usable and accessible areas must be arranged to provide sufficient space for routine care, child play, and learning activities. So you have to have a space that provides enough space for play and routine and learning. These areas must be designated to allow the provider to supervise and actively supervise the children depending on the nature of activities. So your space should be arranged so that you can see every part of the classroom. If you're the only teacher in that classroom, you should be able to see them anywhere. Like you stand in one spot, you should be able to see them. You shouldn't have any blind spots. It also must allow the children to move freely, so centers should be big enough so that they can move freely. There shouldn't be bottle up points and things like that. And allow for different types of activities at the same time. So if you're doing a small group, if you only have one table, That's not enough to do unless you're allowing, children to do art at half the table and the other half to do a small group. A lot of teachers don't like doing that though. So you should have two tables, one for art and one for small group. You can mix centers at the table as long as that's what you're doing. You can't just say we're only doing art right now at this table. You can't bring a puzzle to the table. You have to have enough room for that. So, and yeah, so lots of things to think about when you're arranging your classroom and things like that. Lots of things to think about when you're thinking about space and where children put their belongings. Do they have access to their belongings? Do they have enough space to put their belongings? Are their belongings not touching other people's stuff? Because that's another thing that, it should be stored in their personal things. So their clothes shouldn't be touching other people's clothes. So yeah, just things to think about when you are rearranging your classroom. And if you're on a tour looking to see if children have access to centers, you want to make sure that there's toys and materials on the center or on the shelves, because they're at eye level. If you walk into a classroom and everything's up on the cubbies or the teacher counter and there's hardly any toys on the shelves, your child's not going to have a fun time there. So maybe look for someplace else. But yeah, so that's WAC 110-300-0140. Thanks. Bye.